that leads us into the next segment. When we're talking cover zero, this has been the talking point many times against the Dolphins, right, Anthony? Hey, the Bills don't have answers for cover zero. They struggle versus cover zero. When really, if you look at their stats this year, Anthony, they're actually pretty good versus cover zero. And this is our Easy Loan Auto Sales segment. Our sponsor, they're sponsoring this entire segment. So this is gonna be fun. We're gonna dive into some film from cover zero looks in this game versus Dolphins, and then cover zero looks from prior games and how they attack it. And so one of the ways they attack is kind of like what you saw there, that RPO screen. Hey, we have a run called, but if they're blitzing on 2nd and 2, like this Chiefs game, Anthony, we can spit it out. And in this game, they spit it out to Sherfield, and he's able to get 9 yards on 2nd and 2.
And this is so much of this is going to be, again, that risk reward aspect when you're blitzing in general, but especially with cover zero. Like, you are looking to create a negative play or a toxic differential play, or there's the opportunity to get got by the offense. And I think so much of that cover zero conversation from a negative perspective for the Bills coming out of the game against Miami was really influenced by that first interception to Gabe Davis. It was a cover zero blitz, and it was ugly and messy, and he throws the pick, and it's in the red zone, and everybody's kind of freaking out. But they've been better than again, with the numbers, like I think better than people realize. And it's just with little simple things like this. Like, you see that blitz, you've got numbers on the outside. It's basically 3 versus 2. Get the ball quickly into one of your playmakers' hands. You got a hat on a hat from a blocker perspective. And not everything has to be a huge 46-yard gain like it was to Shakir. You just take a nice little 10-yard gain here on 2nd down and 2. At the very least, it's a first down. You move the ball. Maybe it turns into something bigger, but this is the risk that you run when you run this kind of defense against the Bills.
Yeah, and on the season, the Bills have seen cover zero blitzes a lot. They've seen 40 dropbacks, which is 3rd overall. So Josh has seen cover zero pressures 40 different times this year. And listen to some of these stats. In EPA per dropback, Anthony, they're ranked 11th on cover zero looks. In throw EPA, they're ranked 13th. So, just below, just above average on that. He has the 4th most completions with 20. He has the 2nd most yards at 227 yards versus cover zero. And he averages 7.1 yards per attempt, which is 6th overall against cover zero. And then 5 touchdowns versus cover zero. That's ranked 3rd overall. And then some of the explosive plays, they have 3 20-plus yard completions, which is the 3rd most in the league against cover zero. And then 7, this one's good, 7 10-plus yard completions against cover zero, which is 1st overall. So I feel like, especially coming out of this game, I think fans thought that, hey, the Bills don't have answers versus cover zero. No, they do. Sometimes it's disguised well, and they aren't ready for it. And, usually every play, regardless of the play, has a hot or a sight adjustment. Well, if that receiver is not feeling or sensing blitz, then he's not going to run that sight adjustment or hot route. So other things happen, but more times than not this year, the Bills have actually been pretty good against cover zero.
And this Dolphins game, again, was a good example. We had the interception early, but as the game went on, they had those answers for it. The receivers and Josh were clicking. And again, at a certain point too, I like your point, you have to tip your cap to the defense. Sometimes the defense does a really good job, and you have no idea that it's going to be cover zero from a receiver perspective or for a quarterback perspective. And I think that's a big piece that we always get lost in, especially if you're a fan of one team. When something goes wrong, you're just thinking, well, how did we screw that up? And sometimes you just need to flip a different mindset and think of, well, what did the defense do that made that successful, and how did they make us kind of fall into that error? And Eric is another example, going up against the New England Patriots earlier in this year, where Allen finds James Cook on we get a little tunnel screen action, and another successful game.
Yeah, I mean, a cover zero look, 1st and 10 situation, James Cook gets 10 yards. Someone mentioned that Dable, was really good at calling that gold rip, gold whip, wide receiver tunnel screens, things like this. And Dable, they did. And it's still in the playbook. And more times than not, it's only from certain formations. This empty look is one of those formations, especially when you have Cook out wide. And when we broke this down, early in the year in the film room, you could hear the broadcast copy of him calling it Miami. McGahee, you heard those 2 calls, and getting it out to the running back for that screen. So again, screens, they don't run a lot of them. More times than not, it is when they are in these cover zero looks. And I think Charles asked in the chat about So are the linemen pulling just here we go. Are the linemen pulling
Oh,
just
we
again?
both keep clicking it. You click it. I'm
I
sorry.
got
I'll
it. I
stop.
got it. Are the linemen pulling just eye candy on those RPO looks? No, it's actually a run call.
Mhm.
But because of the leverage and numbers that the Bills have on the outside on that play to Sherfield, Josh can pull it and throw it out there on that screen. So again, he's reading it just like on that Shakir play. That corner came, they're still running it as if it's a run up front, but Josh pulls it and throws it out wide. So good question. Again, RPO, run pass option. Some people call those a run with a pass tag where
Mm.
it's a read, but either way, it's not eye candy. It eventually does become eye candy when they do throw it because you're getting the flow at that second and third level, those eyes going with the puller and the flow of the run, but getting it out on the edge. Joe Brady called it spitting it out in
Mhm.
certain situations to that guy it's important when you're talking cover zero. As you said, it's usually a boomer bust type call by the defense. And we're going to talk about why it can be boomer bust here in a second. But watch his play versus cover zero. Now, there are different types of cover zero. Sometimes you're not having a safety deep, it's cover zero, but they're only sending six. They're sending six guys. Sometimes they
Mm.
send five guys. Maybe it's five and one's a spy, right? And one guy's a rat defender underneath. This is a cover zero pressure with six men rushing. And when this happens, Josh is very dangerous for several reasons. One is because he can extend plays, and sometimes it's from the pocket, sometimes it's outside the pocket. We're going to talk about both. But right here, he hits the top of his drop. He has pressure in his face. What's he do? Slides to his left, throws, fading away to Diggs on a frozen rope for a 17-yard gain. Think about that. Under center, play action, cover zero blitz, six-man pressure, guy in his face, and he's able to throw that frozen rope down the field. That's why Josh Allen is dangerous when teams try to run those cover zero looks.
And when you mentioned the numbers of what he's doing on the year with those cover zeros and the yards per attempt, and the touchdowns and everything, like he's going for. I mean, and it makes sense given how he plays the game, but he's going for the throat on these
Yeah.
cover one aspects. But again, that's where you're vulnerable. Like you're susceptible to those chunk plays because you have no support. Like you are in pure one-on-one coverage and situation. Even if you wanted to, like if the protection had held up, hold it's not a word. If the protection had held up, he's got Gabe Davis on the deep over on the middle of the field. Like there are options because of that spacing that is provided to the offense because of that cover zero aspect. And I love that what you mentioned about the different pieces of cover zero. Like I feel like people think cover zero is just
All
okay,
out.
that means you're sending everybody.
Yeah.
And if there's four receivers out in the route, there's only four dudes in coverage and everyone else is blitzing. Like, no, it can manifest in different ways, like with what you have here with Brandon Jones, number 29, kind of sitting as that low hole player underneath. There's little wrinkles and different ways that you can play it. I mean, even Miami is a good example, right? Like Flores and Boyer,
Mm.
the past couple of years,
Yeah.
when they were running cover zero, it was usually like everybody's coming, like
Yeah.
everybody and their mother is coming. You just don't know when and you don't know how. But this year with Miami, again, being a Fangio defense, when they have brought it, there's been wrinkles and levels and layers to it.
Yeah, and in this game, I have the stats. In this game, the Finns played cover zero 23.2%, which is very high for the season for them. And so Josh in those situations was 3 for 5 for 41 yards, had the interception that was intended for Gabe Davis, but he also had one drop by Kincaid. We're going to break those plays down. But let's get back to some of the different types of pressures and how Josh and the Bills offense beat these cover zero looks. So this is 3rd down and 8, and this is another 17-yard gain. So again, another big play down the field. And initially, you're going to see Josh probably the hot right here is probably Cook, but Cook's not looking right now, so he can't get rid of it. But this is why it is boomer bust. More times than not, if Josh has a free runner on him, we've seen him beat that guy more
Mm.
times than not. I'm talking probably in the percentile of like 80%. Like he's beating that one-on-one rusher there. So this is a 5-man pressure, but that guy's unblocked. And watch you see him just right there. That's his patented move. Get that guy out of there. That free runner is not a factor anymore. Josh finds Diggs right here on the crosser for the big gain. One-handed catch.
Nasty.
Like that is what is so dangerous about Josh Allen and why, Josh is one of the when you're talking frequency at cover zero, he is a guy that is blitzed with cover zero looks. Top 5 in the league, but it's also these type of plays that make it really dumb to do because
Mhm.
Josh can do things like that with his legs and with his arm.
We were talking about it offline before the episode started, and you had a really good point. Like, okay, cool. If the free runner is a defensive lineman, are they athletic enough to stay with Josh Allen? If the free runner is a DB, or a linebacker, like, are they strong enough to bring him down and or potentially athletic enough to stay with him?
Right.
And on the year, the numbers from pressure numbers for Josh Allen, he's been one of the best every year at, having a low pressure to sack percentage. But this year, amongst 45 qualifying QBs, he has the second lowest pressure to sack percentage in the NFL at 10.3%. He's been pressured 232 times, which is the fifth most in the league, and he's only been sacked 24 times. And the only QB who has a lower pressure to sack percentage than him is Bajent, the quarterback from Chicago, who has
Mm.
a much less sample size
Yeah,
than
smaller.
Josh Allen in overall pressure pieces. And again, this is like a really good example. Awesome catch by Diggs as well. But that's it. Like when you run these blitzes, especially against Josh Allen, you're either going to get him or you're going to get got because of the type of player he is with that athleticism that he has.
Right. And so this is another cover zero look. But again, they're only sending 5 guys. And so you get one guy right here. This guy's flashing down to Cook, but there's no one deep. And if it gets picked up like it does here, Josh has all day, and you see him hit Kincaid down the field. And I looked up like the targets, like who are the guys that Josh goes to when cover zero looks head his way. And of course, Diggs is number one
Mhm.
in the like, I think he's targeted 33% of the time. And then Kincaid is 25% of the time. And then
Mhm.
everyone else below that is like in the teens, low teens, like I think 11%. Like those two guys are usually the hot or the guys that Josh is going to in these cover zero looks. And you saw this big explosive play for 51 yards on first down against the Patriots.
And we're going to see it, when we look at the Miami tape too, like as the game progressed, those cover zero looks or those blitzes from Miami, and Allen was finding Kincaid, especially over in the middle of the field. And again, this is the risk reward aspect. Kyle Duggar is sweet. I can't stress that enough, especially last year. He was
Mhm.
erasing tight ends. And because you're playing cover zero, you got nobody over the top. This is the stress that Kincaid can put on anybody. He gets basically a free release and has all that space. And because of how smooth his gait is and how fast he is, this is just so easy. He separates from Duggar there, and there's just oodles and oodles of space. And this is one of those times where Allen delivers a perfect ball to Kincaid, drops it right in the breadbasket. But again, that's the risk reward nature. You're either going to heat up Allen and maybe get a pick, or maybe get a sack, or he's going to get you either in structure or out of structure.
Yeah, and we talked about, whether it's a 5-man pressure, 6-man pressure. Well, when you get these free runners, if it's a DB like it is on this play, I mean, good luck. Good luck
Mhm.
trying to tackle Josh Allen on this play. So here's a cover zero look. The coverage is pretty good on the back end, and Josh just steps up in the pocket, changes the ball into the other hand, and he's out the front gate of this play. Like this is why he is so dangerous, and why defensive coordinators probably shouldn't call it, because if while you are trying to gap out in many ways when you're running these cover zero blitzes, especially all out ones, you're trying to gap out here and take away any escape lanes for Josh. Hey, you better beat us from the pocket with your arm, find your hot read, find your sight adjustment, and really gap out and not give you any escape lanes. Well, guess what? If that's a DB that has to tackle Josh, you're just not going to do it on a consistent basis. And so you see these boomer bust plays end up being booms for the Bills and Josh Allen because of his ability to break tackles as a runner in those scramble drill mode.
And it's just his body type presents such a different change in approach that you have to have if you're a defensive back. So Cameron Curl 31, like he comes on that blitz and he comes screaming down, and there's actually a good alley for Allen to run with the block from Morse, the block from Torrance, and the block from Spencer Brown. And there's so much space, and Curl just doesn't break down. He comes forward screaming like he's tackling a receiver or even a running back out in space, and maybe an arm tackle or a shoulder will get those guys down, but it's not going to get Josh Allen down because he's a friggin' elk at like 240 pounds, and he just goes through. And again, that's the bind that you get put in if you are a defense. That is the risk reward. And this, if you're a defensive coordinator, you're pulling your hair out here and you're pissed because it worked schematically. You got the free runner, your blitz worked, the timing is there, boom, and Allen just makes you wrong when you were right.
Yeah, and here's another one, recently where Josh broke the pocket. Now, you're going to see these two guys right here are playing deep, but they're actually in man coverage on the tight end and the running back here. So they're sending 6 here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, the two linebackers. So these two deep guys are actually for the tight end and for the running back, but those guys stay in. So all they do is hang out deep, but it's still cover zero. And Josh again finds that escape lane, and then he just makes these guys look
Mhm.
silly for the touchdown. This is the danger of playing those cover zero looks, whether you get a free runner or not. If it gets picked up, which, the Bills have picked up several of these against the Dolphins, not so much. But you see, if there are those escape lanes, if that rush lane integrity is not good, Josh will find that little crease, and then he gets in the open field and he just does some crazy things naturally to get in the end zone and get 6 points.
And this is, you highlighted the safeties and the coverage there, and it's 3rd and 11 here. So they're trying to disguise it a little bit, but they can also play deep like that because they think, okay, if Allen has to throw hot, we come down, we close, it's 3rd and 11, we got space. So they're playing the sticks, they're playing situationally. And Allen takes off, and 32, Reed Blankenship, again, he's sitting there because his man stayed in. He's got all the space in the world to come down and try and make this angle and make this tackle against Allen. But Allen has all this space and just, again, another level. Like we showed him just kind of using power and getting through arm tackles and evading guys by the line of scrimmage or in the backfield. And this one is just in space. And Reed Blankenship, he's a smaller defensive back. He's small, especially for his safety. This is advantage Josh Allen. Like you normally think, oh, like a quarterback out in space against the safety. Oh, it's probably advantage safety. No, it's advantage Josh Allen. And this is the stress you put on your defense. It puts you in that bind of asking players to have to live in a high leverage, high stressful situation. And that teams have been really specific with what they've done against Allen. I mean, Pittsburgh's a good example with what they did last year. I know they got gamed up and the Bills put a ton of points on them in the regular season, but they were using Minka Fitzpatrick to spy Josh Allen. They were using arguably their best defensive player to take on Josh Allen. And that's what you have to do. Like if you can't just put anybody in a one-on-one situation with Allen, like it's got to be a premier dude, because more often than not, if it's one-on-one and he's got the ball, he's going to beat you.
All right. So now let's get to those cover zero looks against the Dolphins. Again, Allen and the Bills were 3 for 5 for 41 yards, an interception, and 1 drop versus cover zero looks. This is that drop. This is by Kincaid, and I really like the design of this. It doesn't look like much, but as the Dolphins send that pressure, that cover zero look, they have obviously Kincaid over the middle, but they also have some deep options here. They have options outside the numbers. They have options to the middle of the field. They have a check down outlet right there. So I actually like the design of this play. Josh buys a little time like we've seen him do and throws it over the middle, and Kincaid drops it. And I will say this play reminded me of the play against the Bucks that Kincaid had dropped over the middle, where Josh is kind of, moving around in the pocket. You see the all out pressure right there. They don't have enough guys to pick it up here. And Josh kind of, scrambles out to his right, but then throws it over the middle. And I think that Kincaid lost track of this, or probably tracked it a little late here, because watch his body language as he comes across the middle. Right there, he kind of lets up a little bit, and Josh throws it over the middle. So Kincaid letting up a little there kind of threw his rhythm off there. And again, the tracking was off a little bit, and that drop happens. But he does make up for it later in the game.
That was my one big point, so I'm not really going to add on too much for this. Other than like that, he lets up a little, and that's the difference. Also notice here, like there's a rep in this game where Allen gets sacked on a cover zero piece because Torrance doesn't pick up the linebacker blitzing on the inside. This time he does. The protection holds up. So just little intricacies and differences. And then my other point, Allen does a huge flop as Christian Wilkins makes contact with him here. If you go to the sideline cam angle, watch Allen in the backfield, like Wilkins just comes and makes contact with him, and Allen looks like he got hit with a 50 cal. It just goes down.
Snipered.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's that gamesmanship that's between those two guys. That's funny.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll go to second quarter here, 5:56 on the clock, 2nd and 7 situation here. This is the 36-yard play to Diggs. And again, it's a little different. So they kind of make Kincaid's route look like he's going to be running over the middle again, but pivot him back to the boundary. But this is a play where they have 3 down linemen, and then they're setting up the pressure here. You can see them setting it up. And Josh, once again, buys time versus this 6-man pressure, and probably didn't have to fade like this. In fact, it probably caused some pressure into his face, but he knew prior to the snap that they were sending this. You could see the hand signal from Diggs and Allen. Watch him. It's kind of like I don't know, wrestling. John Cena, right?
Yes.
John Cena.
Yes, Eric.
All right, I knew
you.
that one.
Yes.
I knew that one. I got you, bro. I got you. Did a little research, but no,
Yeah,
it looks like
can't
John
see me.
Cena. Yeah,
Well
yeah,
done.
exactly. And so I don't know if that means, hey, cover zero's coming, or it's just, hey, guess what? They have no safeties deep. There's something there with that, because after the Gabe Davis interception in the end zone, Josh on the sideline also kind of made that signal like he missed it. But you see him buy time, and then I love Anthony, and I'll let you talk about it, how the placement of the ball allowed Diggs to stack that guy and, of course, track the ball down the field.
Yeah, the placement with it being on that inside shoulder and kind of more on that red line, it allows him to work back inside of the ball, and it allows him, like you said, to stack Eli Apple and get into an advantageous position. And then it's a bit of late hands from Diggs. Like, he's hand fighting, he's trying to get separation with Apple as the ball is coming down. And you watch him just at the last moment just stick those hands out and pluck the ball as he's sliding, and the ball is at like knee level for him. Like, the catch, the hand, like the soft hands and the deftness in his mitts to be able to just pluck that
I
right
mean,
almost
look at
ground.
Apple's hand. His hand's in
Yeah,
there too.
that's not
And
bad coverage.
no, it's not. And his hand's in there. The ball's in the hands of Diggs, but then I really love how he tucks this and uses his
Yes.
body to shield. He immediately puts it, into his body and then uses his back to shield Apple so he can't break it up once he comes down the ground. Man, that's just a silly play and an explosive play down the field,
Yes.
Anthony. Two digs from Allen, which he did miss Diggs.
Yes.
Diggs should have had a even bigger game than
Yep.
what he ended up getting.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Ramsey earlier in the game, it looked like he did kind of what he did in the Rams game last year, where he kind of sat
Mhm.
thinking or anticipating that Diggs was going to sit, and then Diggs just ran by him and was wide open. Allen missed him on that one, doesn't miss him on this one. There's also, you can't see it on any of the all 22 angles, but the broadcast camera, one of them did a really good job. As Diggs shields it with his body as he makes the catch, he also gets his right hand like underneath the ball. So as his hand and the ball slide on the ground, the ball doesn't make contact with the ground. Like, or
Right.
it's his left hand. He
Left
curls
hand.
it underneath it. Yeah, it's just really well done from a technique standpoint by Diggs. And again, kind of an alien throw from Allen, like off platform, just chucking it up. Also, you get some nice blitz pickup from James Cook
Yeah,
on
that was
that
nice.
play. So yeah, so things working well. That's a huge piece as well, right? If Cook can continue to succeed in pass pro, and he had some good reps in it in this game, that means he can be on the field more in passing situations, which also gives him the opportunity to be a pass catcher in those situations.
Yeah, and so now we're in the third quarter, 10:42 on the clock, 3rd and 5 situation. This is a sack. And again, I think it fooled the protection, but it also fooled Josh Allen and the receivers on this play. Because prior to the snap, usually if that zero blitz is coming, again, you'll have hand signals. And it's obvious that the blitz is coming. You could see the blitz stems. They're showing it right there as that dummy cadence comes. And so I'm not sure why they didn't have a hot route or side adjustment with this. To me, I just the way Josh looks to the bottom of the screen right here. To me, I think Shakir is supposed to be the hot here, but for some reason they just run their normal routes. And so I don't know what happened on this play. Obviously, the protection broke down, but it seemed pretty obvious to me in hindsight that the blitz was coming and they needed to get rid of the ball. They didn't there, and there's that 8 yard loss there on the sack. And as you talked about, I don't know again the protection here if you're supposed to get a punch
Mhm.
step right here, a power step inside by Torrance to pick up Baker. My my thought is I don't think so. My guess is they were essentially in 5-0 protection right there, because you can see Holland off the edge. So they have
Mhm.
3 down linemen, and then again these guys off the ball coming. But I don't even know if Holland actually is a blitzer here. So you see Ingram come off the edge. So I don't know. I don't know if he's supposed to be the most dangerous threat or if he's a big on big here. Either way, they're gonna have a free runner, and
Mhm.
the Bills were not prepared for it. That's really the outcome of this play.
It's funny hearing your thought process and diagnosing this because it's literally what went through my brain. I started with Holland because when he rushes off the edge, it almost looks like he's green dogging, kind of like he
Mhm.
rushes and then sees Fournette and is like, "Oh no, okay, like he's gonna release, so let me stop." And then he just kind of sits and watches him. And then I was like, "Yeah, they did this earlier." And Torn stepped down inside, but exactly to your point, no matter what they do, there's going to be that free runner. And yeah, I thought similar. Like I feel like he's looking to Shakir.
Mhm.
Again, Shakir is the slot receiver there. He's the inside man. That's the one you're expecting to be hot. He looks like he's expecting some sort of help from Khalil Shakir there. And again, like you said, you can see it in those blitz stems. Deshaun Elliott is capped over the top of Kincaid in the slot up top. Brandon Jones, number 29, is over Shakir in the slot there. So Allen sees it and recognizes it pre-snap, and you just don't get any type of reaction and or adjustment from the receivers. And this is one of the few times where Allen doesn't make a free runner miss and actually gets brought down.
Yeah, it happens. Again, it's Sometimes you're going to lose, sometimes you're going to win, but more times than not, they've won this year when it comes to these cover zero looks. So we talked about this play earlier. It's this time it's a cover zero look. It's a 7-man pressure, and Kincaid top of the screen in breaking route. He reads it this time. Josh stays in the pocket and is able to buy just a little more time. You see him fading away a little bit, but Kincaid's there to catch the ball for the 7-yard gain. A really nice look at it from the end zone angle. Once again, it's a little easier to track from a receiver standpoint because you can see right down the middle of the field right there, right between the hashes. Something that we didn't quite talk about. This was a game that Josh Allen and the Bills offense did a hell of a job at getting the ball over the middle. Something that we've tracked the entire year, and they haven't done all that well this season. But in this game, they did a really good job of getting the ball in the middle of the field on those in breaking routes. This time against that cover zero look.
Yeah, should have had another completion earlier on that Kincaid drop that we showed. This time you get a similar situation and a completion this time to Dalton Kincaid. And again, this is that risk that you run. Like you're on it, especially from the slot, right? Like you are, if you're Elliott, number 21, that safety, you are on an island. So you have to
Mhm.
respect that two-way go inside and or outside. And Elliott doesn't even play this horribly, but Kincaid runs a good route and he's got the advantage from a space perspective, and then takes a good angle getting upfield and turns it into a 7-yard gain, kind of drags Elliott for another couple extra yards. Thought he had the first down, but he doesn't. This is also too where Allen's arm strength comes in, right? Like
Mhm.
sometimes he's fading away when he doesn't need to. But this time, fades away, and to be able to still get juice and zip on that ball over the middle of the field or really anywhere he throws it, even though he's fading away. That's kind of, again, one of his unicorn pieces. And also in that previous clip, another good blitz pickup and read from James Cook. So another one, kind of a little feather in the cap for him in that
Yeah, and
aspect.
so we've showed you like the different ways that the Bills offense like to get the ball into the hands of the targets versus those cover zero looks. That was a fun segment, and I enjoyed it just from a research perspective because you got to see some of the hots, some of the site adjustments, and again some of the players that the ball ends up going to in those cover zero looks. Just a fun segment and something that obviously the Bills has seen a lot of this year, and they're going to see going forward in these big games as the playoffs go through, kind of progress.
Yeah, and especially given the teams that they may potentially, face again going down the stretch. If they see Kansas City, you're going to get some cover zero. If you see Baltimore, you're going to get some cover zero. Well, but Baltimore is just a menace in and of itself with everything
Hmm.
that they do on defense. But yeah, really fun segment to kind of open everyone's eyes. And that's why we made the entire segment, the easy loan auto sales. I'm just making that for the entire segment instead of a play. And of course, obviously, that segment sponsored by Easy Loan Auto Sales, who, regardless of your credit situation, Easy Loan can help you get behind the wheel and on the road to better credit. All of their vehicles include a 2-year, 24,000-mile warranty, and they have 3 convenient locations in Buffalo, Lockport, and Niagara Falls. They can get you driving today. Go to easyloanauto.com to start your accelerated approval, and we have all of their information in our episode show notes here on YouTube and or whichever podcasting app or platform you're listening to this show on.